This mental health occupational therapy video will explore some of my insights in the increasing mental health crisis since the pandemic. I'll explore some common causes of mental health stressors and teach you an exercise that will hopefully help you or a loved one feel better, hopefully happier, especially in the long term. If you are new to this channel, my name is Jeff, a board-certified and licensed occupational therapist practicing in America. A common misconception about occupational therapists is that they help people find jobs, but instead, they help people to do the things that they want to do that are meaningful to them. My goal is to increase awareness about the profession of occupational therapy to help people live healthier and happier lives. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing to this channel and joining to be a member. Check out the video descriptions for other ways that you can support this channel, like grabbing my merch or my handmade badge reels. Thank you all so much for your support. I'm Jeff, the OT Dude, and let's get functional. The pandemic has changed the world in a way that many of us definitely have not expected. And one thing that occupational therapists look at when they consider how a person's mental health may be affected is one's routine. We all have our own routines, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed and finally go to sleep. Even if your routine may not be as regular or consistent, we all like to have something that's regular, right? Some of you may have less of a routine, but you may have had one before, I'm sure, when things were better, so to speak. And you likely felt better when you did have one, I bet. Even animals, especially if you have pets, like to have routines, especially animals in the wild. When there is no routine, there's unpredictability. When our lives are not stable, there may be uncertainty, and this can be a source or cause of stress. Now add to this the pandemic and other external or even internal factors such as our mental health, and over time it can add up, and we are seeing across the world a mental health crisis during these times. Studies are showing an increase in anxiety, stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and burnout, as we are seeing in the Great Resignation, right? So many of us cannot deal with it or do not know ways, or it's just too much to deal with. Maybe you have gotten sick, or you're worried about getting sick, or you have even lost a loved one or a friend from this, or know somebody who has, or you're worried about not being able to go to school and finish your classes and graduate, or maybe your work has affected you, like you have been laid off and you're having trouble, say, putting food on the table, or you're worried about having to going to work and possibly catching something. Maybe you're prone to being sick, or you're part of being a at-risk population. I can relate to some of these concerns as I have had some of these thoughts and worries myself, and especially since the start of the pandemic, even till now. So maybe you aren't worried at all, some of you, and that's okay too. But all of these changes and shutdowns, masking and policy definitely has caused a change in our routine one way or another. Maybe some to a lesser degree if you live in areas that are less affected or are less concerned about it. But there are just general ways you can improve your mental health overall. And there are a lot of misconceptions about mental health in general. One is that mental health issues may be for those who are just crazy, or those who have psychotic issues or are born with it or have a family history of it. Sometimes people think that it only happens to those who may be poor or those who do drugs, but we are seeing that it is not true and that anyone can suffer from poor mental health. Did you know that even being chronically angry may be a sign of depression in men? So I want to encourage you to not think of mental health as black and white, like healthy or unhealthy, but instead being on a spectrum. Just like how our physical health also varies and has shades of gray in between instead of just being black and white, and you're being labeled healthy or unhealthy. You could be on the way to being more healthy, right? For example, someone recovering from a broken bone begins healing right away, slowly and slowly, little by little, as their bones heal, even if you may not be able to do things like you were able to do before, like functionally walk around. So this is the same for our mental health. Does our mind automatically heal by itself without our conscious effort? I would argue probably not, and instead, it can also gradually get worse and worse without us taking care of it and taking care of our mental health needs. So this means that anyone is prone to poor mental health, and they may reach even a final breaking point, leading them to even harm themselves or others. Key is to notice that we are heading in the negative direction and to take action to get us better on track for better mental health so that it's more in balance with our lives. So what can you do? One important step is to realize that you may be heading in the negative direction for poor mental health. For example, if someone thinks nothing is wrong with them in terms of their mental health, then they are likely to be in denial and have lower chances of getting better because they don't recognize it or acknowledge it in the first place. And poor mental health just doesn't mean that you're depressed or necessarily crazy. It just means that you are not in balance with being happier and on the spectrum of being less happy and more sad, for example. Just like if you were to ignore a toothache, then things could get worse and worse and it can pile up and it can cause even bigger problems. The great thing about the strategy that I'm about to teach you is you're probably doing it already, just not therapeutically to its full potential. A popular term you may have heard of these days is self-care. So no, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to check into rehab or talk to a therapist or have a family intervention for your mental health or anything like that, at least in the beginning steps of poorer mental health. Of course, this is just like one video that is meant to be geared towards like a general audience, and your needs may be more specific and you may be on a spectrum of being more extreme, but overall, you can still probably benefit from doing this exercise, just like how you may exercise and stretch out, like doing things at the gym or at home in your home gym or out and about at the park and things like that. So people who practice yoga know this, and it's controlling your breathing intentionally. Did you know that out of all our vital signs, such as our heart rate, our blood pressure, our temperature, and our breathing, the one that we can consciously control is our breath. We often breathe without thinking about it. It's automatic. And when we tend to get stressed or things like that, we often may even hold our breath and keep the bad stuff like the carbon dioxide and the bad stuff inside instead of fully expelling it. Kind of like a car that has all the exhaust built up in the tailpipe. It needs to get rid of it, right? So reflect on yourself. Are you even holding your breath right now? So the first trick is to remember to breathe. Not only breathe, but to take a full deep breath in and full continuous deep breaths in and then exhale out. And the slower, the better. You can even put one hand over your belly so that you can take a full breath there instead of breathing just through your chest. When you focus on your breath, you kind of ignore things that are on your mind and stresses about your life. So even if it's just to take a minute to breathe, I think like even your Apple Watches these days remind you to breathe can be a really good way to at least take good care of you in the moment when you may be extremely stressed out. Therapists like to call this deep breathing or therapeutic breathing, and it's best when doing this to have your mind focus on your breath and not something else like negative thoughts. One of my favorite things to do is to open the window and to get some fresh air instead of just breathing the indoor stale air. Or you can go outside and try some of this deep breathing in your favorite local park or in a garden or something. So try it out. So there is a lot more, of course, that you can do for your mental health, but I think this is a great start. Since we all know how to do it already, we can probably, I'm guessing, do it a little better so that it can really effectively make us feel better for our bodies and our mind. So my homework for all of you is to do more therapeutic breathing. So hope this helps. And for more mental health tips and content related to health and wellness, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more when a video drops. I'm Jeff, the OT Dude, and happy breathing.